The commentator argues that Meghan Markle continues to make poor business decisions regarding her lifestyle brand, as ever. According to the speaker, the brand has become trapped in a cycle of failure because Meghan refuses to change strategies that have already proven unsuccessful. They criticize the company's ongoing reliance on product bundles, claiming customers are frequently required to purchase multiple items in order to access a new product. In their view, this approach has grown stale and ineffective, and they suggest that a significant amount of inventory remains unsold. The commentator believes Meghan may need to make major changes to prevent further difficulties for the brand, arguing that products such as the recently announced strawberry matcha drink are unlikely to solve its underlying problems. During the video, the host briefly pauses the discussion for a sponsorship segment promoting Tubes & Company, a skincare company. The host explains that she has become more conscious about the ingredients she uses on her skin and praises the brand's products, including its vitamin C serum, glow serum, frankincense face balm, and cream cheek tint. She highlights the product's natural ingredients and claims they help nourish and protect the skin while creating a smooth makeup application. The host encourages viewers to visit the company's website and use a promotional code for a discount before thanking the sponsor for supporting the channel. After the sponsorship segment, the commentator returns to discussing Meghan Markle and as ever. She expresses frustration with what she sees as a pattern of poor decision-making, joking that Meghan consistently chooses the least successful option available. The speaker points to the latest strawberry matcha launch as an example, claiming she had predicted it would be sold as part of a bundle that included other existing products such as strawberry spread, matcha mixes, and flower sprinkles. According to the commentator, this continued reliance on bundling is a clear indication that the business is struggling. She further argues that the brand has failed to introduce meaningful new products during the year, relying instead on collaborations and relatively minor items such as bookmarks and matches, which she believes are unlikely to generate significant customer interest. The commentator argues that Meghan Markle remains committed to a failing strategy for her as ever brand and refuses to acknowledge what they see as clear signs of trouble. According to the speaker, the company significantly overestimated consumer demand and is now facing the consequences of excess inventory. They suggest that the only realistic solution is to clear out existing stock rather than continuing to introduce new bundled products. In their view, if inventory is not sold in time, the company could face even greater losses. The discussion then turns to the latest product offering, which combines strawberry matcha, strawberry spread, and flower sprinkles. The commentator criticizes the concept, claiming the promotional materials and product presentation are unappealing. They also question Meghan's investment decisions, arguing that several businesses she has publicly supported or invested in may not be performing particularly well. The speaker believes that publicly promoting every investment is ineffective and suggests that a quieter approach would be more beneficial. Reviewing the product description, the commentator mocks the marketing language used to promote the collaboration, particularly the repeated references to rituals and morning routines. The product is marketed as a strawberry matcha drink made by combining matcha latte powder with strawberry spread and finishing it with flower sprinkles. While the speaker personally finds the recipe unappealing, they acknowledge that strawberry matcha drinks themselves are not necessarily a bad concept. As an example, they mention seeing a similar strawberry matcha beverage offered at a popular London chocolate cafe, where it appeared to be well received by customers. However, they argue that the execution and presentation of Meghan Markle's version fail to make the product appealing and do little to address the larger concerns they have about the direction of the As Ever brand. The commentator argues that the latest strawberry matcha promotion is further evidence that As Ever is struggling rather than succeeding. In their view, the continued reliance on bundled products signals deeper business problems and reflects a failure to adapt to market realities. The speaker believes the company overestimated demand for its products and now faces the challenge of moving excess inventory. According to the commentator, introducing additional bundles does not solve the problem and instead highlights the lack of a sustainable long-term strategy. To explain their point, the speaker uses the example of collectible figurines sold in bundles. They note that companies sometimes pair popular items with less desirable ones in order to encourage sales of products that might otherwise remain unsold. While this strategy can occasionally help clear inventory, they argue that it is not an effective long-term business model. Applying this comparison to As Ever, The commentator suggests that customers are repeatedly being encouraged to purchase the same products, particularly strawberry spread, in order to gain access to new items. They claim that loyal customers who have purchased multiple launches may already own several jars of the same product, making the repeated bundling increasingly unattractive. The commentator further argues that as Ever has introduced very few genuinely new products throughout the year. Instead, they claim the brand has relied on repackaging existing items, offering bookmarks, bundles, and limited edition accessories rather than expanding its product line in a meaningful way. They point to previous promotions involving bookmarks that were initially offered as free gifts before later being sold separately or included in bundles. According to the speaker, these moves suggest that products are simply being rearranged and repackaged rather than replaced with innovative offerings. In their view, this pattern reinforces concerns about the brand's inventory levels and overall business strategy, leading them to conclude that the company is focused more on moving existing stock than on creating new products that would generate fresh consumer interest. The commentator continues to criticize Meghan Markle's business strategy, arguing that the company repeatedly reintroduces existing products rather than offering meaningful new ones. They point to examples such as chocolate bars, bookmarks, and matches, describing them as relatively minor additions that are often tied to bundles. According to the speaker, customers are frequently required to purchase products they may already own in order to access new items they actually want. They argue that this approach becomes frustrating for loyal customers, who may find themselves repeatedly buying the same candles, spreads, or other products simply to obtain a newly released accessory or limited edition item. The speaker believes this bundling strategy is evidence that as Ever is struggling to move inventory. In their view, attaching older products to newer releases suggests that the company is attempting to clear existing stock rather than responding to genuine customer demand. They argue that while bundling can occasionally be effective, it becomes problematic when used repeatedly without offering discounts or significant incentives. The commentator compares this approach to previous product launches, including wine packages that required customers to purchase multiple bottles instead of allowing them to buy a single item. According to the speaker, this strategy may initially generate sales, but eventually risks alienating customers who feel pressured into making larger purchases than they want. The discussion then shifts to inventory management. The commentator argues that a more effective business approach would involve discounting older stock, clearing warehouse space, and reinvesting the proceeds into fresh inventory and new products. While acknowledging that such a strategy may reduce profit margins in the short term, they believe it would be preferable to holding on to perishable inventory for too long. The speaker suggests that failing to clear stock could eventually result in products expiring before they can be sold, creating even greater losses for the company. Another criticism raised by the commentator is that the brand does not do enough to demonstrate creative uses for its products. They argue that consumers already understand basic uses for items such as fruit spreads and jams, but may need inspiration to discover new ways to incorporate them into recipes and everyday meals. The speaker suggests that the company could create content showing how its products can be used in drinks, desserts, sauces, glazes, or other dishes. In their view, educating customers about different uses would increase engagement and encourage repeat purchases. Instead, they believe the brand focuses too heavily on repeatedly selling the same products without offering fresh ideas, leading some customers to lose interest over time. The commentator concludes that consumers may be growing tired of these repeated marketing tactics and are becoming less enthusiastic about purchasing additional versions of products they already own. The commentator argues that Meghan Markle's business strategy continues to frustrate customers by requiring them to purchase products they already own in order to access newly released items. They point to previous examples such as the crepe mix and shortbread cookie mix, which were introduced with enthusiasm but later disappeared from the product lineup. According to the speaker, this inconsistency makes it difficult for customers to develop lasting habits or traditions around the products, as items are frequently introduced and then removed without explanation. In their view, this reflects poor planning and inventory management rather than a well-organized long-term business strategy. The discussion then turns to Netflix's past involvement with the brand. The commentator speculates that part of the funding associated with the Sussex's Netflix deal may have been invested into as Ever and argues that Netflix's apparent decision not to continue investing signals a lack of confidence in the company's future. The speaker believes that while Netflix may have previously influenced aspects of the brand's launch strategy, including seasonal product releases, the company's current direction appears increasingly unfocused. According to the commentator, repeatedly bundling older products with newer releases is only a temporary solution and does not address the underlying challenges facing the business. A major focus of the criticism is inventory. The commentator estimates that the brand may have sold only a fraction of its total stock and argues that a substantial amount of inventory remains unsold. They suggest that continually encouraging customers to purchase more of the same products is not a sustainable growth strategy because consumers may eventually become bored, run out of storage space, or simply grow frustrated with being asked to buy duplicate items. Since many of the company's products are perishable, the speaker believes holding large amounts of inventory could create increasing pressure over time. Finally, the commentator argues that the company's difficulties stem from what they see as a significant overestimation of consumer demand. They suggest that early product sellouts may have created an overly optimistic impression of the brand's popularity and led to much larger production runs than the market could realistically support. According to the speaker, selling out a limited quantity of products does not automatically justify a dramatic increase in inventory. They contend that the company may have misinterpreted early sales data and expanded production too aggressively, resulting in the challenges they believe the brand is now facing. In the closing portion of the commentary, the speaker argues that Meghan Markle's biggest mistake was significantly overestimating demand for her products. According to the commentator, underestimating demand is generally easier to recover from because successful products can simply be restocked. However, they believe overestimating demand creates a much larger problem, leaving a company with excessive inventory that becomes increasingly difficult to sell. The speaker contends that as ever has spent much of the year relying on product bundles as a solution, but argues that this approach has failed to generate the desired results and is no longer sustainable. The commentator maintains that the company should focus on reducing existing inventory rather than continuing to introduce new collaborations and bundled promotions. In their view, clearing stock through sales and discounts would allow the brand to reinvest in new ideas and products. They argue that there is nothing wrong with acknowledging that a particular strategy did not work and changing direction. However, the speaker believes Meghan Markle is unwilling to admit mistakes and has instead continued pursuing the same approach despite what they see as mounting evidence that it is ineffective. Another major criticism centers on marketing. The commentator argues that the brand has not done enough to educate customers about creative ways to use its products. They claim that promotional content repeatedly focuses on the same recipes and serving suggestions, rather than demonstrating a wider range of uses that might encourage repeat purchases. According to the speaker, consumers need inspiration and practical examples showing how products can fit into different meals, drinks, and occasions. By failing to provide that guidance, they believe the company has missed opportunities to keep customers engaged and interested in purchasing additional products. The speaker concludes by arguing that the brand's challenges are still potentially reversible if decisive action is taken. In their view, the company needs to acknowledge past mistakes, reduce excess inventory, and develop a more effective long-term strategy focused on innovation and customer engagement. However, the commentator remains skeptical that such changes will occur, suggesting that pride and reluctance to change course may prevent the business from making the adjustments they believe are necessary. The video ends with the host inviting viewers to share their opinions in the comments before thanking them for watching and teasing upcoming coverage of royal news and events.